then if you just can't get out of bed, you can't serve in that way, you could pray for the folks, and you could, if you had finances, you could donate, but there's certain things that you wouldn't be able to do. And again, that's just like, as an example. Or you may really want to like get deep with the Bible or a spiritual practice and learning about certain things, and your mind's not firing. And so these are things that you've got to keep up with, and understand that if there's it's impeding the ability to fully perform. So it's worth it. Like there are a lot of people, I would say that almost everyone in some ways falls in the category where we're intentionally making sacrifices to our mental health and our physical health by just saying, well, I'm just going to drink a bit of alcohol, or I'm just going to eat a bit of this bad food. And, I'm not going to give up the
Now I know what you're thinking. What yourself. Now look, I know you all are on social media every day, especially people who trying to sell a business. You trying to promote your stuff. You trying to spread your message. You got the calling. You got the word from the Lord. All that good stuff, right? But you don't feel like it. You don't have the time to promote the social media. You don't have the time to create the content calendars. You don't have the time for none of that, right? So that is where my new package comes in. And this is called the Trust Builder Package. All right. So this is for those of you who want to create great social media content, whether it's on LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, Facebook, YouTube. All right. And you need somebody to do your captions, descriptions for you that are high SEO, that'll get you pushed out there to the masses and to find your personal development audience, because you are more than likely a personal development influencer. So who does this cater to? Coaches and consultants, faith-based leaders, wellness experts, authors, podcasters, motivational speakers, educators, mental health advocates, you name it. All of you who are trying to see the betterment of your community. All right, this package is for you. All right, hit me up in the DM, email me, reach out on the Nazio platform, and I'll hook you up. It's another day, another podcast. A lot is going on. A lot of stuff has been happening. Crazy things, and although this episode isn't necessarily geared towards, there's just a lot of evil going on in the land. I'm gonna just leave it at that. And hold on to your people, tell them you love them, because unfortunately we live in a world where we never know when your last day may be. And with that being said, you would hate for your last day or last days if for you have not to met your full potential. So that's what this episode is geared towards today. I feel like a lot of us are sleeping on our potential. We make excuses about things. We say we're going to get to it next week, tomorrow, next month, next year, and we never get to it, and we keep making excuses. So hopefully, if nothing else, this episode pushes you towards that. If that's been you you're supposed to be doing something, and you keep making excuses. God put that calling on you, gave you that reasoning and that purpose. He probably gave you a prophetic dream, who knows, and you just overlooking it. So let this be the wake-up call. Hopefully, let's get into this week's meme. Really simple today. You're not using your full potential, fam. Real simple. I don't need all the extra today. I only got one source of inspiration today, besides my guest, so technically two. But another source of inspiration actually comes from something I've been reading in my personal reading time lately. And God has had me doing a different thing when it comes to the verses. And like I may read a chapter here, and then while I'm reading the chapter here, I'm also dissecting another book, like by verses at a time. So I'm not just, going through the whole book. So in the Message version of Jeremiah 6-8, chapter 1, 6-8, it says, "But I said, hold it, Master God, look at me. I don't know anything. I'm only a boy." It says, God told me, don't say I'm only a boy. I tell you where to go and you'll go there. And it was another part of that verse that goes to the next one, says, God puts his words in your mouth. So with that, a lot of times we make excuses. Like Jeremiah tried to make an excuse. I'm just a boy. I can't do that. Or, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. oh, maybe next week, or oh, I'm not old enough, or I haven't lost enough weight yet. All these excuses, right? And a lot of times God waiting on you to start. You waiting on the right moment. God waiting on you. So let that be inspiration for you today. All right, let's jump into it real quick. Happy hour. All right. So for today's happy hour, I just want to reiterate, a lot of us are sleeping on our own potential. A lot of us make excuses. A lot of us want the life. We sit up with our friends and we talk about the life that we want and what we're going to make happen and how this is going to happen. Okay, so what's stopping you? That's the question. And this is going to be a real quick happy hour. What's stopping you? You're stopping you. I hear so many people tell me every day, like I've gotten to the point where I've told people, I don't want to hear it. And it may sound blunt, cutthroat, whatever. I don't want to hear it. Just do it. You get in group messages. I'm just waiting. I'm just going to do this. Just do it. You don't have to tell me anything. Just do it. I don't tell you anything. I just do it. And some people say, well, I just want to make sure. No, just do it. I'm at that point where I've literally had to tell people, just do it. Now, if there's an imbalance or something going on that psychologically, maybe then, I'm still not a therapist. So, but you need to get to the root of what that is. Now, how you go about it, that's between you and God. But that's something that you need to take into your prayer closet. Because again, at this point, like I said, I might not be right, but I'm just at this place. That's me holding myself accountable. But I'm at the point where I'm literally saying, I just want you to just do it. Do what you got to do. This is for anybody who think they want to start a podcast. So is it you? Do you think you want to start a podcast? Cool. Let's be real. Watch this. So we don't need another podcast that sound like everybody else, right? We got enough of them. We're going to talk about those today. But saying the same stuff with no structure, no message, no plan, that ain't good. Now that's where I come in. Me, right here, Head Honcho. All right. So I have a new podcast package. It's called the Legacy Launchpad. Now, what is this? This is for podcasters who fall in the personal development influencer space. So who is that? That would be obviously personal development. That's pretty broad, but coaches and speakers, Christian-based influencers, faith influencers, maybe a pastor, a church, any type of course creator, education, mental health, wellness, nutritionist, all that good stuff. If you are trying to help the betterment of other people, fitness too, then this is for you. I will help you build your podcast from the ground up. This includes toning up, giving you the message, your niche, your show structure, the episode outlines, the intros, outros, descriptions, all of you. Show up to record and I build your legacy. If you're ready to stop playing, let's get it cracking. Okay. Now, we're going more in depth in this conversation today. I have a great guest, somebody who, from what I've researched and seen, is kind of a no-nonsense kind of guy. And I think that we're going to get to the bottom of some things. And he has a lot of things he needs to promote. So I'm interested to see how this conversation is going to go, but I'm also pretty excited. So let me go ahead and introduce my guest for today. My guy, what's going on?
Hey, not too much, man. Nice to connect with you, Izzy.
Yes, sir. So real quick, can you tell the people what's your name, where you from, and where you live now?
Sure. I'm Jonathan Otto. I am from Australia, hence the accent. I live in Puerto Rico.
Okay. Now, real quick, how did you get to Puerto Rico?
Yeah, I was living in California, in San Diego. My wife and I saw that to live in Puerto Rico, there was just an ability to kind of live more in nature, live like we're living on the beach here. It's raining outside now. It's still beautiful, but these are beautiful natural wonders, and it's a great place to raise a family. We have a young family, so yeah, it's nice.
Okay, all right, good stuff. So, tell the people what it is that you do.
Yeah, sure. So I'm a health and wellness advocate. I'm an investigative journalist. I am a filmmaker. I've been on the cutting edge of regenerative medicine, of seeing and working out how to reverse chronic disease. Where some of the really key figures for helping folks get answers for health problems that typically don't have solutions. And I'm an interface and a resource to a lot of the top clinics and doctors around the world that use the research and protocols and various aspects of the things that I've either uncovered or collaborated on to, best treat their patients. So I'm like kind of like a researcher and an information source to leading doctors.
Okay. So hidden science, that's something I seen when I was doing my research on you. And I really like that phrase. And we've had people on this podcast before that talk about the dangers of, the mainstream pharmaceutical companies and just some of the things that they're not all 100% bad, but there's a lot of things that the big pharma does, right? So what made you decide to start uncovering the hidden science behind healing instead of just following the narrative that the mainstream likes to push on us?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been very much kind of concerned about how people really don't get given solutions. They get given pills and drugs, and they get given like the hope that the symptom would be aided, but then with that solution comes a lot of other problems and never actually uncovering the root of what's going on. So I was very concerned about that. I felt like I didn't get answers for my own health problems, and I had a lot of health problems as a child and had a lot of different chronic conditions, from Lyme disease to blood viruses that caused fatigue. So I had chronic fatigue syndrome, and I'd have strange things like boils. Like in the book of Job, it talks about boils, and I never knew people that had boils. So all I'd read about was Job getting boils, and I'd have all these boils breaking out on my skin. They were very painful and a lot of pus coming out. I was like, what is wrong? And I never got given any reason from any doctor for why this was happening to me, let alone any way to reverse it. So that set me on a course from a young age. And then my background, the degrees I graduated with were in journalism and education. And I took those to then go deeper into humanitarian work in the developing world in Kenya and Mozambique and Mongolia and various parts of Southeast Asia. But my mission was and is to help solve human suffering and give solutions. And so I ended up finding a lot of really cutting edge solutions to solving those problems. And hence why I'll be taking a flight in a few days to work on some anti-human trafficking technology. I'm not a technology engineer, but to work strategically with these companies to help fight this pervasive and issue that is arguably the greatest bane that we have on our society. My interests are in solving these types of problems. And in the same way, I became acute at understanding what it was that was causing and driving chronic disease. I gained a lot of great colleagues and friends that were some of the best doctors in the world, and then would collaborate and understand certain tools, certain medicines, natural medicines that could help alleviate certain issues, uncover what was really driving something and causing the issue in the first place. And these were the things that kind of caused me to get good at solving health problems just by thinking laterally and solving problems.
Now that's a good story. I think that you are one of those people, I feel like kind of like me, like you have your passions, of course, but you kind of have a few different passions and you kind of well versed in a lot of different things. You mentioned earlier about filmmaking. So you have documentaries and they've reached millions. Well, before I get into that, that movie, I can't remember the name of it, but it went viral, not viral, but it like went to the theaters. It was about the man saving the kids from the trafficking, and he like went undercover and he went to
Sound of Freedom.
Yeah.
Sound of Freedom. Yeah. So I wasn't directly involved in that film, but I work with a lot of the guys connected to either that, some of which are connected to that specific operation, and we're a part of it. But I'll give you an example. Tim Tebow, he has a foundation. He's done a lot of great work, and there's a lot of companies that a lot of folks wouldn't know the names of them, but they are established companies that are doing really great work, from GameSafe to Deja Vu AI to HarmBlock, SafetyNet. And these GameSafe, they are incredible for helping in the fight against human trafficking, to detect where children are being trafficked, to solve the problems where they're actually originating from before they happen. And so I'm connected to a lot of the groups that are helping advance this work, and hence the crossover with a film like The Sound of Freedom, which is a really great way to open the conversation so people are aware that the issue exists. But I wasn't directly connected to it.
Okay. Well, no, it just made me think about that movie and how much of an impact that it had, and how
Cool.
So, and then of course you're into filmmaking and all that stuff. So you have documentaries that reach millions. So that's great. All right, let's go to the next segment, which is, what does this have to do with mental health? And when we talk about this, we know the study of mental health is the definition is the study of how we act, think, and feel. So before I get into some of my points, I just have to ask, you done all these documentaries. You how did you get into like when you say wellness? Of course, we know that's mental health. They're all in the same kind of family. But what made you say like how did this become a passion for you?
Yeah, sure. So this became a passion because, well, as I mentioned, I had my own health problems, but when I found solutions, like, for example, that autism could be reversed, and I'm not saying that every case that I've seen has been reversed. I'm saying that I have documented and seen, and I've been a part of cases where there have been complete reversals of autism with children that had high ATEC scores, which are meaning that they have full-blown autism. They're not just like a mild case. So if I find that out, or if I see a case of late-stage cancer getting reversed, like stage 3, stage 4 pancreatic cancer, people decades past their diagnosis, and most of the world doesn't know about that, I then feel like a real commitment to getting the truth out there about that and educating the public. It's super important to me. So yeah, that's kind of where that comes in. I just feel like we should all be doing what we can to get that information out. I don't think it kind of like falls on any one person. I think it's all of our responsibility to get the truth out there for folks.
Yeah, and I like that because this was kind of like your purpose, I feel like. And it's funny because it goes into my next point, because a lot of times I'm a firm believer in whatever burdens you, whatever excites you, those are usually that's for a reason. And I believe that it's put in you for you to do something with that. And I think a lot of times we're taught by the world to what makes a lot of money, what can do that. But we live in a world where I do think we are graced in these, I don't want to go there, but kind of those end times, especially with what happened earlier to just happen, where you literally can get paid to do your passion. And it's not, now I'm not going to say it's not easy, it's not hard to do. It is hard, but it's easier to do compared to generations past. So I think that that's something to keep in mind for anybody out there who may be thinking like, oh, we can't do that, or well, we can't do that. No, we live in a different world now. You can do that. So
yeah, absolutely. And Izzy, you asked, what does this have to do with mental health? Did you want me to answer that one?
Well, no, that's just a question that's the segment title. So, but if you want to answer, you can.
Sure. Yeah. I'm happy to. I just didn't want. I never want to let something go unanswered. And
yeah.
So I'll just give a short answer that you could decide how far you want to go into this. But physical health and wellness is obviously directly connected to mental health. A lot of people are very familiar with the fact that you could have a trauma or some kind of abuse or physical, sexual abandonment. Things can cause mental health issues without question. Everyone's very aware of those triggers and others, violence, people coming back from a war, all kinds of various aspects that would contribute to different types of trauma, or mental health issues. But the ones that people often don't look at are the ones that become some of the most important, because they're the ones that people they're not getting any solutions. They're not even thinking that this could be a big driver. Like, you could have suicidal ideation because depending on this, where there's flags on something, but the ideation of wanting to unalive yourself, if you from a few sources, like gluten would be one with wheat. There are studies specifically on bipolar and on schizophrenia with wheat consumption, and then there's a study specifically on parasites with the attempting of unaliving yourself, which if you had that one parasite, which is the most common parasite in America, it's called Toxoplasma gondii, and if you had it, you were 7.13 times more likely to attempt to unalive yourself. So these are like really big triggers behind mental health. So cleansing your body of parasites, getting rid of inflammatory foods like wheat, gluten specifically, and then looking at heavy metals and how they drive these issues, even synthetic animal venoms that are all through our food supplies, because we're eating food that is toxic because it's got this glyphosate and other forms of pesticides that are extremely harmful for the body, and then we need to cleanse our body of these. So yeah, these are things that I've kind of been helpful in educating folks on.
Yeah, and we've talked about that on this podcast a few different occasions, and it's always good to reiterate, even in different ways, because even how you said it was differently than they've said it, and that all of you are not wrong, all of you all are right, and the fact that so many people still fight against that logic of, oh no, what we're eating, they keep telling you what you're eating is, unaliving you, and it's one thing in moderation, but it's a lifestyle that they made, and we were taught. This generation is pushing back against that narrative that, oh, you get old, you get sick, and that's just what it is. And I don't believe that. I refuse to subscribe to that narrative. And, so that's just me. That's the first point that goes into with mental health. So the first one is purpose protects men's mental health. According to how having a purpose in life can bolster men's mental health, it says men reporting higher meaning in life show less overall psychological strain, resilience, and reduced loneliness partially explain the effect. Purpose gives direction, reduces rumination, and nudges consistent action. Antidotes to drifting through life, framing goals as mission and not merely motivation, and supports sustained mental health. So when you're not filming or researching, because we see you're a researcher. I'm a researcher, so I heard it in everything you were saying. So when you're not filming and researching, what does a quiet day look like for you?
Oh yeah. Well, playing with my children, I got 2 young boys. I'd be taking them down the beach. I'd be snorkeling with them, looking at the fish in the ocean, either in front of my house or down the road where there's more coral. I would be riding the bike or scooter with the boys in the street. I would, obviously a lot of kind of things with them. I'd be taking my wife on a date, trying to find a way to calm her down and make her feel happy about life or whatever. not saying that I'm trying to rescue anyone, but just sewing into that relationship and trying to be present, because it's easy not to be, and it's easy to get overwhelmed with other things and not really be a great partner. And so I have to really work on being a great partner and how to, be present and take time, and then and be a good listener. And so these are things, reading the Bible, watching sermons and podcasts that are particularly on the spiritual side of things, most commonly, outside of just the education that I do, but that in research in the health space, but the spiritual practice of keeping, really spiritually sound helps me a lot to, be happy.
Yeah, I think that, well, before I say what I'm gonna say, I have 3 words, and I want you to tell me what's how I want to get this out. I have 3 words I want to read to you, and I want you to tell me the first thing that comes to mind, and there's no right or wrong answer. Are you ready?
Yeah, ready.
The first one is potential.
Mm-hmm.
What's the first thing that comes to mind?
Sure. So when you say potential, what's the first thing that comes to my mind when you say that?
Yeah.
First thing that comes to mind is the ability to be anything you want to be, and to do the things you want to do, and to fulfill what you're called to fulfill. That there's something really amazing and beautiful about God that is uniquely manifested in you, and you have a responsibility and the blessing of being able to fulfill that, and that's potential for me.
What about discipline?
Discipline would be that to have the things that you want and to become the person that you want to be, it doesn't come by without effort and without fighting against your own self-destructive habits and behaviors, and understanding that things are stacked against you and your own thought patterns are stacked against you, and being willing to deprogram your own mind and create habits around that is discipline in action, which is the vehicle to happiness and to fulfilling your potential.
And then the final one, complacency.
Complacency is the selling out to the idea that everything is predestined and you can't change outcomes, and everything is everyone else's fault, and you don't have personal responsibility, and escaping the pain of whatever it is that you're going through, maybe feeling worthless. I think that people don't realize that everyone battles with feelings of worthlessness, and instead of fighting those feelings of worthlessness, you settle into them by escaping those feelings, particularly through numbing behaviors, from pornography to media and the news and other people's lives and gossip and things that are mechanisms to try to make you feel better about yourself, instead of dealing with that pain of and having that healed. And so creating a lifestyle around fortifying your bad behaviors and your bad habits, and resigning yourself to the fact that you will not, and you no longer even have a goal to fulfill your greatest potential, and the disciplines that it takes to get there are so far from you that you are within the world and realm of complacency, where you are justifying and living a life where you're so far away from that, and you've developed a lifestyle that supports your inability to fulfill your potential.
All right. So great, by the way, because usually people just answer with one word or a phrase. And you gave me some quotes for the episode, so thanks. All right.
Nice.
So the first one, potential. Latent qualities or abilities that may be developed and lead to future success or usefulness. Discipline, the practice of training people to obey rules of a code of behavior using self-control to improve behavior or achieve goals. And then complacency, self-satisfaction, especially when accompanied by unawareness of actual dangers or deficiencies. So now I like the word dangers or deficiencies, or the phrase with complacency, because it brings us things I want to bring up, but you already did. So let's see how that works. So you talked about porn, you talk about numbing behaviors and things that we bring up a lot on these episodes. And I will never say, like, if people want to have a drink from time to time, cool. But I will never say you need to watch corn from time to time, because it's never beneficial in any way. And something that helps, I've learned with getting over that, is a friend of mine who he told me one time, he said they were, this is years ago, talking about that. And he said, oh, I don't watch that because it's no point. He said now he still does a bunch of other stuff too, but he says why he never got into corn was because he says, I can't touch them people. So he says, if he was like, and I'm just gonna be honest here, he said, if I'm gonna watch something, it's something that is a person I can actually touch, not nobody that I can't. So I said, when you look at it like that just that phrase and that logic alone will help somebody who may struggle with that by hearing, well, you know what, you watch somebody you can never touch, and then it's like, maybe that'll wake up something. You just never know what helps people or brings them to deliverance. But I like how you made the comment about we get stuck, which goes to my next point before our next segment, which talks about complacency. And when I think of complacency, I also think of delay. Delay, a lot of times we, as I said in my opener, we delay ourselves. And a lot of times you're thinking we waiting on God, God's waiting on us. He told you what to do. You're making excuses of why you aren't doing this, that, and the third. So before I get to my next point, I want to ask you, what was life like when you lived in delay? Because we've all been there at one point or another.
Oh yeah. What was my life like before I experienced delay?
When you lived in delay, before you were doing what you were called to do, when you maybe were making excuses for things or stuck in just the same cycles.
Oh yeah. Yeah, sure. I remember in my late teenage years, because I went through a stronger conversion experience at age 19. And so that was definitely clear. And then to be also clear, after then, it didn't mean that I then had worked it out. And so then there was delay through there. And then there's also delay in my life even today, right? So and not justifying and saying, oh, it's fine, just live with that. I'm just acknowledging the fact that I'm not sinless, but I want to be, and so I'm not justifying that. I want to be better than what I am now, and I can see, and I try to be honest. Like I am honest, but I try to be honest with my shortcomings. So how it looked back then was definitely like living inside of the desire to please people and to perform for others, which then I was specifically like a musician, and I am, but I was doing a lot with my band then, and I wanted to kind of pursue a path of fame. I cared a lot about those things, but it for me, that was delay because it was the things that I had built my life around were things of wanting to win people's attention and their praise.
Right.
And I like, without realizing, I wanted their worship. And and to be special, that I could just find a way through that. And then that was such an empty cycle, which was filled with pride and then shame. And that was a revolving door that I couldn't get off. And so, yeah, it was just, it never worked. And then so now, like, that I'm doing things of impact, it doesn't immune me from wanting the praise and worship of people, for people to like me and validate me. And it's like, and that's why, if somebody praises you, you've got to be really careful of how you receive that, because if you let that go to your head, you'll also let the bad things that they say about you go to your head. Or actually, this is a good one. If you let the praise go to your head, then the criticism will go to your heart.
Yeah.
And you're guided by things that are based on status quo and public opinion. But if you look at and I can tell you the reason why I became good in the medical journalism space is because I was willing to entertain things that others were not. And it was because there was shame. There was shame that would cause people not to look into certain things. Which was always the case with things like what gets injected into your arm from a baby up, and what all the things that happen over the last few years. Those things are huge concerns, but the shame of having to wear that badge, and then even in that community, then there's a certain group think there, and if you say something that's different, then now you don't have that tribe either, and then there's you end up kind of getting all these separate silos. I'm not a combative person in the sense that I'm trying to be different. I'm just not willing. If something leads me and it is a piece of truth that makes me at odds with everyone, I've got to believe that, and I've got to move forward that, because if I don't, then I don't have tools to help people.
Good stuff. And so much to unpack there, but I'm gonna unpack it in the next segment. So let me just read this though, because we're talking about delay, and that's one of the points. And this is another point that I researched. Delay is leads to procrastination, and this is procrastination that harms mental health. According to associations between procrastination and subsequent mental health, it says longitude evidence shows procrastination is linked with later symptoms of stress, anxiety, depression, loneliness, and lower life satisfaction. It also correlates with poorer physical health behaviors. Habitual delay isn't harmless. It compounds psychological strain and keeps people stuck. For men, this means postponing action erodes confidence and well-being over time. And it's just kind of like some points that you hit just talking about. I love that when you said you wanted the people's worship. And I've never heard that before. I do have heard basically what you said, which is live by praise and you're going to die by criticism. But I think
I haven't heard that line. I like that.
Oh, really? Well, we both said the same thing in different ways.
Yeah, it's true.
But yeah, if you live by praise, you'll die by criticism. And it's like, even with the point that it was somebody who was on my podcast, Joshua, is it Jackson? Yeah, I think that's his name. He was on my podcast a few seasons ago. He talks about whenever he starts to feel a little too prideful and thinking like this is what I did and not giving God the glory, he'll make himself sleep on his floor. He has a big king size bed. He'll make himself sleep on his floor to show him that you can go back to this. Anytime he starts to feel too prideful, he'll make himself sleep on the floor for the night to say, you go back to this. Don't get too caught up in, oh, you did all this. No, you didn't do all this. You were graced to do it, but you didn't do it in your own strength. And I think sometimes we can get caught up in that. So I'm going to move to the next segment for the day, which is I challenge that. And in this segment, this is where we just kind of challenge some things and just things that we may believe. So what is the biggest challenge in running your platform while also staying true to your faith and values?
Sure. Here's a good one. I would say that one would be the beliefs of the people that you're connecting with. Like, let's say, for example, if I'm interviewing with somebody that like they, maybe they're like on the conservative right. And then like, let's say a lot of people are like, there's bullying on both sides. Let's say, for example, with a transgender issue. And let's say that the host is talking about the other side of that, where some of the guys that have been like very cruel towards people that are maybe more conservative or traditional Christian values, and then there's this huge attack or mean things said that way. Anyway, my point being that like then the host takes a hard position against that. And then now I'm engaging with somebody that's kind of doing something that's kind of like anti-transgender, even though there's certain things where I'm like, look, I don't like the, like I'll call out bullying on both sides, but like there's always this kind of thing to melt into whoever is the person that's speaking to you, so you agree with them. And that's one where it's like, well, look, if I believe, like, I don't want to engage in things that are like mockery and slander, even if it's a president that I disagree with what they have done. And where it gets really hard for me is if they did something that I feel like hurt a lot of people. Now for me to mock them and to laugh at them and to wish their demise and then to banter with somebody else, that then becomes hard, because all of a sudden you're in a frenzy, and then in order to be kind of, just kind of go with the punches, you end up saying these things. And it's like, hey, look, I'm not even talking like a Christian now. Like, Jesus loved all people. We call out evil. It's very important to that. It's actually a very strong Christian value to call out evil. So you would talk about the actions of folks, but you wouldn't necessarily, you certainly wouldn't delight in their demise. And these are very common things that are, it's one example, but then just any kind of honesty with making sure that you just, everything you're saying is totally true. It's easy to kind of blur the lines a little bit to make something more attractive, or to make a sale so that you say something not quite right. So I really feel that that's one where it's just like, look, just because then it changes how you feel about yourself. And then and then you might mislead somebody. So these are things that I really think about, and I just think, like, because they're all tests, everyone gets tested on these things. So to be really honest on those things, and then to kind of go, okay, this is a normal marketing practice, but it's actually not honest. We should abandon this practice. And there are things like that.
So it's something you said a lot of great stuff, but it's something you really said about, values. And one thing you said about we should never delight in the downfall of our enemies, the people that went against us. Now, this is a very honest podcast. And, one thing about me that has been a struggle, but I'm open with it, right? And that's the main thing, because it's one thing to struggle with and just be like, this is just how it is. And it's another thing to say, this is wrong. I know it's wrong, but I'm open with the struggle. And one thing that I've struggled with is when watching people do some of the most heinous, evil things to me. Now, I've grown past matching energy, right? That's a worldly practice that we glorify. Oh, let's match energy, right? But one thing that I have, and I don't do it publicly, is like when people do things to me, I have, internally been like, that's what you get. But what I've been learning with me is that, similar to my guy who was on the podcast that I just mentioned and referenced, that could be you in 2 seconds. And so I want people to hear that as someone who openly says that that's something that they have struggled with. You can go from high to low in just that fast. And so keep that in mind whenever you start to feel that way. But the beauty of this type of podcast is we're open with things that, happen, because nobody is perfect. And that's just a part of it. Yeah, if you could simplify your brand's mission into one sentence for me and listening today, what would it be?
It's just to put an end to suffering, to make people's lives better, and to like give them the God-given birthright to live, which means to live free from ailment and disease.
All right, let's move into the final segment for today, which is the weekly sabbatical. So, Greg, you set it up again perfectly with what you just said about living free. So, doing research on you, I saw a lot about brain fog, chronic fatigue, things that when we talk about sleeping on our potential, right? Sometimes you sleeping on your potential, even going back to what I just said, sometimes we sleep on our own potential by making excuses for bad behaviors. Sometimes we get caught up in our flesh and wanting to, like I said, get back, and I'm going to hold a grudge and I'm going to do this to you. That's a form of sleeping on your potential too, because you are, instead of letting it go and allowing yourself to fully be used all the way, because you're holding the weight of that grudge or holding the weight of wanting to do this to this person, you're not at your full peak. You're nowhere near because of that. But even so, what about for the medical reason that your potential is being slept on because of the brain fog or the chronic fatigue? So how does this contribute to men wasting their potential without them even realizing it? The brain fog and the chronic fatigue.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Ask that question one more time so I make sure I can do the best job on it.
So how does brain fog or chronic fatigue contribute to men wasting their potential without them even realizing it?
Yeah. So yeah, brain fog and fatigue is going to, it's just taking the wind out of your sails, and you can still be an amazing person, an amazing Christian, and like so many people have done so much with so little. And so it doesn't make you bad if you struggle with these things, and it doesn't mean that you can't fulfill your God-given potential. It's just that it may be hard for you to do some of the things that you really feel called to do. Let's imagine that you want to deliver food to the hungry and work at a soup kitchen. Then if you just can't get out of bed, you can't serve in that way. You could pray for the folks, and you could, if you had finances, you could donate, but there's certain things that you wouldn't be able to do. And again, that's just like, as an example. Or you may really want to like get deep with the Bible or a spiritual practice and learning about certain things, and your mind's not firing. And so these are things that you've got to keep up with and understand that if there's it's impeding the ability to fully perform. So it's worth it. Like there are a lot of people, I would say that almost everyone in some ways falls in the category where we're intentionally making sacrifices to our mental health and our physical health by just saying, well, I'm just going to drink a bit of alcohol, or I'm just going to eat a bit of this bad food. And, I'm not going to give up the drinking the Coca-Cola every day. I'm just going to, keep these things. And that it's injuring your mind and it's triggering toxicity and fatigue, but you're just saying, well, it comforts me. And so they're the things that it's mediocrity. And so we've got to fight against that. No one's immune. No one's perfect, but you've got to lean into what makes you your best. And so that you can have the clearest mind, look at the foods that are inflammatory and look at the toxic triggers, because then once you know that toxic triggers like parasites and heavy metals and venom, synthetic animal venoms in the food supply are then remediated by red light therapy, a gluten-free diet, anti-parasitic herbs, heavy metal cleansers like EDTA, nicotine, surprisingly, not smoking, but either patches for a cleanse around like 3.5 milligrams could be life-changing for people that are stuck in fatigue, especially after what happened over the last few years. Then once you learn that, then you have, and by the way, God made eggplants, tomatoes, potatoes that all have nicotine in them, by the way. So does tobacco. So that's how people have just got a lot of confusion around this. God made it. You've got nicotine receptors for it. So it's about, and again, it's small amounts. So that's not even a stimulant at that level. You're just cleansing your body from these receptors. So my point there being that you're cleansing your nicotine receptors from the poisons that are bound to them by putting in something that's preferential for that same receptor. And hence why we see so much remediation of so many different conditions, from type 1 diabetes all the way through to Tourette syndrome, to myocarditis, to autism. There's clinical studies, and Parkinson's, on all of the conditions I just mentioned, specifically with nicotine. So once you know that, you have then a responsibility to then try the things if you're suffering. And then a lot of people learn things, but they won't do them because they don't follow through, because they haven't developed that muscle. And you've got to do the things. You can't just think about it. You don't get, it's in Proverbs, it says, the soul of the sluggard desires and has nothing, but the soul of the diligent will be made fat. So we've got to take action so we can have a better life and have better functioning of our brain and bodies.
So as we wrapping up today, you brought up so many different things, but we're obviously an advocate here of therapy and going to get help. Tell us a little more about red light therapy, how it can benefit a man today. Like, obviously this podcast caters to young millennial man, so they've never heard of it. How could it benefit them? What could they get from it?
Yeah, absolutely. So red light therapy, there's great studies on red light therapy for depression, and people are tested an hour after red light therapy, then 2 hours. And so it immediately has an effect, and depression scores go down immediately, even in that first hour. The second hour is an even greater effect. So light has a compounding effect, which is because we've tackled this from a theistic Christian point of view. Genesis 1 says, let there be light, and then all life comes as an onflow from light, and then everything is designed to receive light. So our bodies are translucent for a reason. They pick up light, and so if I show a light through here, like you'll see this, you'll see there, you'll see the light permeate through the skin, especially if it was against the mouth. And if I put something up, I'll find something here to illustrate that. But these are examples of another time. But that light is extremely responsive to the body, and that's why you'll have improvement in eyesight. And so this is my best way of explaining this. So the brain actually has the highest concentration of mitochondria of any organ in the body. So you've got hundreds of thousands of mitochondria per brain cell, which is way more than any other organ cell. And that's the reason why God put eyes, which is your brain, exposed on the front of your face, so that you could take in light through your eyes to go straight into your brain. And so light is one of the most healing things. And then toxic light in the homes, we're getting toxic light. And so that is damaging eyesight. And this is a study done by the UCL University that found that if they put red light over the eyes for 3 minutes, immediately there was a 17 improvement in eyesight. So just think about a 17% immediate improvement in eyesight, what that means, because the eyes are part of the brain. What does that show you for what is happening to the brain? And the depression studies and anxiety studies and traumatic brain injury studies and dementia studies are incredible, showing people using this therapy to turn these conditions around, where conventional strategies and solutions offer no hope. It is being used for cancer. It is being used for all different types of cancer, and simple red light therapy, which is simply a tool to put light into the mitochondria, so that the mitochondria in the cells can produce ATP, adenosine triphosphate. This is how cells generate energy, store energy, and use energy for cellular function. When cells have energy, they can do everything. Without it, they can do nothing. And so detoxification, the cells will inherently do this. They'll perform cellular function, regeneration. They'll produce more stem cells. They'll work to make stem cells mature. So red light therapy is arguably one of the best things you can possibly do by far, and one of the most affordable things that you can do, because once you have a device, it ends up then cost you basically you're treated for free for life at that point. And so whether you do that in a payment plans, if you are on a tight budget, and so you're paying $50, $100 a month for several months, and then you own a device, or whether you just pay that, but now you with one device can use that on an entire family, on all your loved ones. So again, it's the most cost-effective therapy. It's cheaper than any supplement, any one single supplement. Red light therapy is cheaper because it's a one and done, and the energy consumption is so low because the power is going into light, and light is less in the generation of energy versus heat. So it's a light therapy, not a heat therapy. So yeah, I think that people should do that. And I can refer people as well, if you want to learn more on that, you could look at myredlight.com. That's my company. So we do manufacture and develop red light products. We like this is an example behind me. This is 9 different wavelengths, so you can see slightly different colors, 9 different wavelengths. They penetrate different areas of the body. There's dual LEDs, so 2 different light sources coming out of the same light, or two different wavelengths coming out of the same light source. And then really high radiance, which is over 205 milliwatts per centimeter squared at 3 inches, which means you're getting a high amount of delivery of a light into the body, the highest actually on the market, which is amazing. And then 0 EMF. So we really kind of doubled down on making that special. And it's why we've seen some like breakthrough case studies. I was just citing a study, an anecdotal reference to what is showing up in studies as well, which was a woman that was bedridden, and she was formerly a marathon runner. She is bedridden because of Graves' disease, a hyperactive thyroid. She then used the red light over her thyroid and the rest of her organs, because it was that size, right? So it was our device from head to groin areas. She went and in 2.5 weeks competed in the Boston Marathon from being bedridden, and the doctor's saying, you can't do anything. Look at your markers. Her markers normalized, and then she went to compete. So you can see turnarounds, and that's what's powerful. And Izzy as well. People can use the code Izzy, IZZY at checkout, and that will activate the discounts that you can see on the page. Which is like some really big savings there with the red light therapy devices at myredlight.com. So that's it, my man.
Okay, good stuff. Good stuff. So this has been a great episode. Final question, and then we're done.
Yeah.
What is the most practical step a man can take to stop coasting and start building on his gifts for you? What do you think? What would you say?
Yeah, sure. So to stop coasting, build on your gifts. I would double down specifically into your relationship with God and how you receive value and worth from God, so that because that's the epicenter of your behaviors. So for example, if I'm doing exhibiting worthless behaviors, like say treating people poorly, cheating people, being dishonest, watching corn all day, Yeah, right. So if I'm engaged in all these things, they're worthless behaviors. But that doesn't mean, I'm not saying that the person is worthless. I'm saying it's the fruit of somebody that is like a vagabond, somebody that's like wandering and and I check myself on this stuff and go, what why are these thoughts or some of these behaviors showing up right now? And it's like a litmus test, a diagnostic of saying, oh, I've distanced myself from God, and I need to go to God as my source of where I gain worth and value. And so my encouragement there is to then not only go to God, but then to go deeper into what you believe about God and how God is toward you. And subconsciously, if you are running from God and exhibiting these behaviors, it's because you believe and you feel that you're condemned by God. And this is the epicenter for sin. And that's the reason why the woman caught in adultery in John chapter 8, when Jesus said to her, where are your accusers? Does no one condemn you? And she said, no man, Lord. And then he says, neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more. So he's saying, if you don't believe that I condemn you, you're free from these sins. Because a woman in this case didn't want to be a prostitute. It's not a great life. So why was she doing it? There was the fruit of condemnation. So he said, I don't condemn you. And I agree with you. Now that you believe that you're not condemned, because she said it, no man, Lord, I'm not condemned. Once she believed that, then he says, go and sin no more, which wasn't, don't do this anymore. It was a proclamation of, you are free. It was actually a promise. You are now free from what was enslaving you. And so that's my biggest encouragement for anyone watching, that you subconsciously have God as both a judge and an executioner without even realizing. And so, and in order for you to be to be disposed by God and to be thrown out and cast aside by God, then you have to then be worthless to God. And hence why there are so many things that are taught as true that are not true, even within the Christian belief. And that's why if you do a thorough and deep study of the Bible, including an understanding of the Greek and Hebrew words that are used, I believe that you, under deep study, will come to a position that, if you're open-minded, that God is not these things, and God can only mirror back to you your own soul. And so you yourself, who is a judge and an executioner, then will see this projected onto God, but it's actually you. And that's why the Bible sometimes can be confusing, because you don't know how it speaks through a mirror of your own soul. But the reason why I'm emphasizing this is I'm saying that once you absolve God of that, God is not the one that is doing this thing to you. God is not the one that is throwing people out into a place where he sends all the children that he hates. These are look deeper at the words and the meanings and what is tradition and what is actually what the Bible teaches. And you'll find that God freely accepts all, but humans, we have been given the power of choice. And so we reject. And that is, and then once God is no longer responsible for all of that, then you have an immense amount of value and worth. And that's one you can take to the bank. And it will give you a lot of confidence and abilities to try things and fail. And if you can try things and fail without the question of your worth and identity, then you are now free, and you can go and do things and keep getting up and keep succeeding by failing forward, by falling and messing up. And this is part of the reason why you see these really cool verses that say, a righteous man falls 7 times but rises again, but a wicked man falls once to his own demise. Mm-hmm. So, and it's because they understand that their value isn't even determined upon their Christian conduct, let alone their success in business or how people perceive them. It's just simply that you are a child of God. And once people can capture that, and once you that's watching, if you can lean into that and make that your daily habit, your meditation, you spend time with God, and that is your prayer of receiving that unconditional love of God, you can free yourself from a lot of the habits, behaviors, and sins that are chaining you, that are keeping you hostage and holding you back from fulfilling your God-given potential.
All right, sounds good. Let's end off with, and you ended up great. How do you, question or challenge for the week for the audience? How do you plan to stop sleeping to your potential this week? We gave a lot of different things to go off of, and I want y'all to really, this is one of those episodes you hopefully might need to re-listen to and take some notes. Anything else you want to add before we go today? We are going to add everything to the descriptions of things. Anything else you want to give to the people?
That's great, man. No, that's great. Bless you, Izzy, and keep doing your great work, man. I love your questions. I love your heart. And I love your all your pursuit of just helping folks find a better way. And I love that you're willing to go there on really hard subjects and help people overcome addictions and limiting beliefs. And that's very vulnerable and real. And you're doing so with just a heart of love and not judgment. And it's beautiful, man. It's rare, and keep doing what you're doing. Keep being who you are, man, because you're a blessing, and people who are listening to you are blessed to know you and to follow you.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. And I feel the same way about you. So keep doing what you're doing. And thank y'all for tuning in. PSA signing out. Always remember, keep your head up like your neck hurt. Remember who you are. Make your mind up. Don't let it make you. And always remember, I love us for real.